Sunday Surefire podcast. It's your host this week, Aaron Downtown Brown. I got the co-host with me, Ethan Weaver.
Aaron, how we doing?
We are doing, Mr. Ethan. We are on week 8 this week. Can you believe it?
Crazy.
We're almost halfway through our fantasy football season. Say it ain't so. What do you think about that?
No, it is crazy. You spend so much time in the off season, kind of doing your research, going through obviously all your dynasty prep with the rookie drafts. Then redraft season comes, you get all excited for it, and like boom, it's already week 8, as you said, almost halfway over, and it's just going by so fast. So hopefully you're doing well in your leagues this year.
Yeah, I guess I'm the only one who cares in the entire world. I went 5 for 5 in week 7, so five for 5 wins in the leagues I care about. So, um, very happy there. Didn't do as well in the DFS last week. It was a pretty overall low scoring week, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But how about you?
Yeah, no, it was a decent week. Redraft. I had some tough breaks. I tied one league, which is kind of crazy. One of my dynasty leagues, as I told you before we got on, I lost by 0.03 points, so that's always fun. So just it doesn't seem like things are bouncing my way this season, which is kind of BS.
Yeah, come on, fantasy gods. Come on. We
Yeah.
need to keep Ethan happy here. Yeah, so I guess just a little bit of news around the league, and I know you're I guess it would kind of be worth it, kind of bring up a few of the key injuries that we saw. Ethan, I'm not sure if you want to bring up a few names that we can cover from week 7.
Yeah, I think the biggest names, just going back to week 7, we had Brandon Ayuk, unfortunately, suffering a season-ending ACL tear. Ayuk was my guy last year, and I was high on him this year. He just didn't seem to kind of get back on his feet after holding out in camp. Just never got going, and unfortunately, he tore his ACL this past week. So just another huge injury for the 49ers. So it was sad to see him go down. I'm a big Brandon Ayuk fan. I was hoping he was going to be a Patriot this season. Obviously, he went back to San Francisco, but he got hurt. Then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just got decimated on Monday Night Football. Chris Godwin looks like he's done for the year with an ankle, and Mike Evans hurt his hamstring pretty bad. They say he's probably not going to come back to week 11, so that's just huge for just the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Super Bowl aspirations. They were playing some good football. Baker's just been playing like a man possessed, so that's definitely going to hurt his fantasy stock. Hopefully some other players in Tampa Bay can step up. And then I think we have to mention Deshaun Watson popping his Achilles, and the lovely fans of Cleveland cheering that on, which is never good to see. I mean, you never want to see somebody get hurt. You don't want to, and you definitely don't want to see people cheering for that. I know Deshaun Watson hasn't been very good at football, and he's not the greatest human being, but you hate to see people get hurt.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, you don't. I think most people, don't really like, seeing that any injury, like you said, and then just fans sharing. I mean, if you're a fan, at least wait to see what the next quarterback does. I mean, DTR didn't play that much better, So,
Oh yeah, yikes! Cleveland's in trouble. I mean, they're the cap hit that Deshaun Watson's going to carry for next. I mean, they're screwed. That was the worst. Just Cleveland being Cleveland, just another catastrophic move by that organization. It's just awful.
it's crazy. I mean, and then you see what Baker's done over in Tampa Bay.
I
I
know,
mean, it's just like, man,
cooking.
you had a playoff, quarterback. So I actually took them to the playoffs, and they still weren't happy. So
It's like the
um,
Jets. Maybe the Jets should have kept Geno Smith and Sam Darnold. They're cooking. They're
that's
doing better than
true.
Rodgers.
That's very true, actually. Yeah, yep, for like half the salary too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, we'll definitely keep an eye on that, and I think a lot of times with injuries, what happened in the fantasy world is, hey, what does that spark for, waiver wire pickups, possible trades, and things like that. So, definitely continue to follow us on our socials. We're very active on our Discord, our Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff, Twitter. I know a lot of you already do reach out, but let's keep those coming. We definitely we like to stay on our toes there. Um, but I guess we'll move on to the Thursday night football game, as we usually do here, and let me get that on the screen here, and that's going to be so for Thursday night. We got a pretty decent matchup. We got the Vikings versus the Rams this week. The away Vikings are favored by 2.5 points. Over under is about 48 points, so not pretty decent over under. Should see a little bit of action there. Ethan, what kind of thoughts do you have on this game flow overall? Then we can kind of get into like betting tips and DFS plays from there.
Yeah, I think we may see some points being scored on a Thursday night. I do think the Vikings come away with the victory here. I was actually kind of surprised to see Minnesota minus 2.5 at minus 122. I know last week Denver was -3, and I thought that was uh, kind of stealing money with the Saints and how decimated they were. And then as we got closer to the game, that line actually went to -2.5. So last week I thought that was a smash, and obviously the Denver Broncos killed the Saints. And I do think at -2.5, even a money line of -155, I think that's kind of stealing money too. I know it's in LA, but the Vikings are playing great football. They're one of the best teams in the NFC. The Rams, Cooper Kupp is coming back, and they might. I mean, they might play some inspired football in prime time, but I do think the Vikings come away, and they're going to win by over a field goal. And I'm going to. I know in my betting tips I took a conservative over, but I don't think I hate taking Minnesota -2.5 and taking over 48. So I think points are going to be scored, and I think the Vikings are going to take care of business.
Yeah, I think I'm with you over on the Vikings. Vikings taking this one here. I mean, I kind of look at my notes on this game, and really the Vikings have the upside in a lot of categories here. I mean, you got Darnold's time to throw is elite in the league. He's top three leading into to last week. Against a not so great pass rush. You got, the Vikings run game has been surprisingly really good too. So, I mean, they're pass blocking well, but they're also run blocking really good. So, we'll get into that. Obviously, you can kind of see my DFS play as well, and kind of how I think that flow will go as well. But yeah, just overall, LA's run defense, doesn't really combat very well with any of that stuff there too. So, just a little bit of quick synopsis on my end there. But yeah, I agree with you. I like the Minnesota 2.5 points as well. As far as my bets, I actually like LA under 21.5 is a plus 114. So I think they're under 3 touchdowns. And a race to 30. I think this one's interesting. I think I'm going to say neither here. Just because I do think the Vikings can get some sacks, they can run the ball. It's going to be a little bit less uh, total possessions for each team. So I think the Vikings can actually milk a lot of the clock in this game. So I actually, for once, it's very fun to bet the over, but I'm a kind of more of an under Debbie Downer this week, where I like the LA under. I got the race to 30 neither. And then if you got the Minnesota 2.5 points, it still turns into a plus 310 parlay. So that's kind of my betting tips for this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, raise to 30, I think -120. I think that's pretty good odds considering it is a Thursday night game, short week. A lot of times we don't see offensive explosions. So I do like that leg. LA under 21.5. That's going to hurt the over a little bit here. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. Obviously that's plus 114. So that will be I think the hardest leg for you to hit there. And then Minnesota -2.5. I think that's kind of stealing. To go to my tips, like I said, Minnesota -2.5, conservative over at 43.5, and then my captain Cooper Kupp over 69.5 yards. I'll kind of get into those reasonings in more detail later, but I do think the LA Rams are going to have to throw the ball a decent amount against the Vikings, and I think the Vikings are going to be playing from ahead, which will lend to your captain, Aaron Jones. And like I said, lend to my captain in Cooper Kupp with the Rams playing from behind.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see. Let's actually jump right into the DFS play, and for those who are not aware, that's our captain's lineup that we do every week for our Thursday night. We definitely want to get a little skin in the game on Thursdays. We got some little betting action, DFS plays, captain's lineups are fun because that's when you got to spend about 1.5 times more for your captain, but they score you 1.5 times more points as well. So. Lot of different strategies we kind of cover week to week. One strategy doesn't always win, but we'll kind of jump into this. And I think here, let's pick on Kamish since he's not with us tonight. We'll go with his captain. He's got the Vikings kicker. So Will Ricard, the Vikings kicker for 8,100 as his captain. We'll actually go right into his value because you see a big old blank name there. So I guess, he kind of texted me. He's like, hey, I don't really need a value player when I got my kicker as my captain. So I imagine he's able to get some studs in his lineup with the Vikings kicker. So, I don't hate it. I kind of just for, giggles, I did look at the spread for his over 1.5 field goals. It's a -131. So, they do think, opposed to the Rams kickers, much less. It's closer to even money. So, good likelihood, if you can get at least 2 field goals, and if one of them's like a 40 or 50-yard field goal, yeah, you can be in 10 plus points, and obviously you're in the money a little bit more if they get three or more field goals. But Ethan, not super exciting talk about kickers, but I tried to do my best there. But if you want to talk on Kamish's captain, you can go right into yours after that.
Yeah, when you can get a captain for as little cost, 8,100, allows you to get pretty much all the other studs into your lineup, kind of like we did last week with the Denver defense. The Denver defense went off for 30 points, and they were relatively priced as the captain. So Commission's kind of following that same blueprint. And in the last 2 games that Rijkaard's played, he scored 16 and 15 points. So if you can do that again, I mean that should smash as a captain. So with that said, I'll go to my expensive captain, Cooper Kupp, which I do expect to play. He did practice in full on Monday. His price point is 16,500, and I'll kind of talk about both my captain and my value because it's kind of the same reasoning why I have 2 Rams receivers. And at the end of the day, the Minnesota Vikings are 32nd against receivers, and a big part of that is because the Vikings have been playing ahead pretty much the whole season. So it's forcing teams to throw the ball a lot. Opposing teams have passed the ball on 69.9%. They passed the ball 69.9% of the time, which is the highest in the NFL. That's translated in Minnesota giving up the 3rd most opponent passing yards per contest, 260.3, and the most fantasy points to opposing wideouts on a per game basis. And it's not to say that Minnesota is terrible against the pass. They just, excuse me. They're playing from ahead, and teams are forced to throw the ball at basically a 70% clip. So that kind of lends to Cooper Kupp, who is clearly going to be Matt Stafford's number 1 option. Every time Cooper Kupp's in the field, he is hyper targeted, especially without Puka Nacua. And and obviously the cast of characters behind Cooper Kupp isn't great. Jordan Whittington, he only played 9 snaps due to a shoulder injury last week. With the short week, he may not play again, which kind of led to my value pick in Tutu Atwell at 4,200, who went 6 for, I believe, 54 yards, 6 for 51 on 9 targets last week. So I do think Tutu can have a good game, and Tutu Atwell with his speed, he can get a big play anytime he goes deep. So I do think the Rams are going to be playing from behind. I think their Stafford's going to be dropping back a ton, and he's going to be looking Cooper Kupp's way early and often. So that's why I went with the high price Cooper Kupp. went with what I thought was one of the best matchups on the the Thursday night slate, and I'm just kind of excited for Stafford to get his guy back. Also, just an interesting note, maybe the Rams showcase Cooper Kupp a little bit. There was reports that the Rams have called multiple teams about trading Cooper Kupp, according to the Athletics, Diana Rossini, Mike Silver, and Jordan Rodriguez. Apparently, the Rams are willing to eat some of Kupp's 2024 salary if they receive a second-round pick. So maybe they showcase him a little bit, be like, hey, look, Cooper Kupp's healthy. He can help a team get over the top and win a Super Bowl. So that's why I'm going Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, that's kind of some interesting insight there. I did see that as well. I mean, I think Cup had the he could have came back a little bit sooner. I know he's been running around in practice, but yeah, just kind of saving him for this at least this Thursday night game as well. But yeah, I mean, I think hopefully this is kind of a Cup coming out, I guess, back out party, really. I mean, he really had a great start to the year. I mean, it was kind of looking like the old days with Stafford and Cup. So, I mean, I kind of hope that happens, just, not for DFS, but for my fantasy leagues.
Yeah.
So I need him to kind of step up there. And yeah, a trade would be really cool. It's interesting. I actually saw the Vikings and the Rams have been in trade talks there, where even Stafford is talked about being a trade subject for the Vikings. Well, I thought that would be a little goofy, but not to get too off track, we'll definitely track the Rams players as they're getting up there in age as well. But yeah, I mean, I think Cup's a safe play. I think, to your point, I think exactly how we think it's going to go down. They're going to need to throw it pretty often. But yeah, I mean, he's just an expensive captain, so I think from a losing, if we both think they're going to be losing, he needs to at least come down with a touchdown, I think, to really make it pay off, right? But yeah, can't hate Cooper Kupp. My captain is Aaron Jones this week. I kind of alluded to it. I kind of like that really just the Vikings overall in this game. They're with them being favored as the away team. Defenses travel well. Their defense has already been playing, pretty elite this year. So like I said, I think Vikings can actually slow the game down a little bit, get a comfortable lead, and keep feeding it to Aaron Jones, which I do know for some fantasy managers, you weren't sure if you're going to play him or not last week with his hamstring injury, but he looked pretty fine. I mean, he still rushed the ball 17 times, ran for over 116 yards. So I think as far as is he healthy? I think he proved that last week. He should be fine for this Thursday night game. But then the last little tidbit here is the Rams. Rams have the worst average depth of tackle this year on defense against running backs at 6.9 yards. So pretty bad at stopping the run overall for the Rams this year. And as I mentioned, the Vikings have actually one of the best run offensive lines for run blocking as well, according to PFF too. So a little bit of surprising. You wouldn't have thought of them preseason as a powerhouse running the game, running the ball. But that's why I kind of like Aaron Jones this week.
No, Aaron Jones is a great matchup. The Rams allow 151.7 rush yards a game, which ranks 30th. So obviously that's going to lend to Aaron Jones and the fact that we think the Vikings are going to be playing from ahead. So definitely like the Aaron Jones call. I'm surprised Ty Chandler isn't incorporated into this offense a little more. He only had 2 carries. I mean, with Aaron Jones coming off kind of the injury he had, you think they'd kind of try to make it more 60-40, but they give the majority of work to Aaron Jones, which is great for fantasy. But if you're the Minnesota Vikings and you have Super Bowl aspirations, I would think you'd want to keep Aaron Jones healthy throughout the season. And Ty Chandler's explosive. So I don't really understand why NFL teams kind of, especially these aging backs, you'd think you'd want to kind of spare him a little bit, but it's a story for another day. Obviously, in fantasy, we want volume. So Aaron Jones has been getting that, and I think he's going to have a good game this Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, it's good you brought that up. I mean, it could just be for the fact that it was the Vikings-Lions last week, and they just needed, keep all their stars out there, all their heavy hitting guys. But yeah, maybe to your point, in a lineup, if you can sneak in a Ty Chandler too, sometimes the RB2 on the team can sneak in a touchdown as well. So Chandler, he's not my value. I agreed with you with Tutu Atwell, so I didn't add too much there too. He's kind of my value play as well, but. It's funny you brought Chandler up. I was considering throwing him in there, but we'll
He's
see.
he's my dart throw. He's in my lineup, baby.
There you go. Hey, you kind of have to, as I
Yeah.
said. That cup is your captain there.
Ty
Nice.
Chandler RB1 this week.
Let's go. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up our Thursday night matchup. And as I said, keep hitting us up on our socials, our Discord. If you don't have the link, we'll gladly send it to you. It gets active recently, or definitely in season. It gets, the chatter comes up a little bit more often there too. So definitely hit us up on the socials. But we'll actually move into the main slate of games, our Sunday night, our Sunday day matchup. So if you're over on the East Coast, it's our 1 and 4 o'clock games, and that brings us into that matchup for Week 8. I do regret I have to put Ethan's name again there for last week's highest score with our matchup last week.
5 weeks in a
Um,
row, Aaron. 5 weeks.
I know you're on a hot streak. I had to kind of hand over the trophy to you this year, but yeah, hopefully, I really like my lineup list this week, and I think we got some nice plays. But hey, I'll let you take a little bit of moment to shine. In a told you so section. Any keys to success and for last week?
Yeah, I wish I had a little more keys. Like 116, that's an okay score. Nothing crazy. Um, but glad to take the victory with in our friendly contest here. But for I told you so, the Rams defense was a big one for me. 17 points at a cost of 3,000. So they came through for me. And then my guy Brock Bowers, 19.3 points at a cost of $5,800. So Brock Bowers just continues to dominate targets. I mean, I feel like he just setting records at the tight end position. I believe he has the most catches in the league right now with 47. So he's just he's playing like the generational talent I think he is, and he's the dynasty tight end one. He's fantasy's tight end one. And Brock Bowers just I can't stop talking about my guy Brock Bowers, but he was awesome last week. So that was some of the big hits for me that I discussed anyways on the pod.
Yeah, and as you said, the 116 is not super high. I know we're usually in the 130s to kind of brag a little bit more, but week 7 actually was a little bit lower scoring overall in DFS. I mean, it was about 20 points lower than normal. So even the 116 would have got you money back on the $1 million lineup. But that's generally you need to be in about the 130s. But yeah, even top place was about 20 or so points lower than normal as well. But we'll go into week 8 where I think, there's a lot of nice plays here. I think we're going to get a bounce back week as far as fantasy goes and scoring goes as well. And we'll start with our bullish buy section, and that's where just players that we're really confident in. Sometimes they're a lot more expensive than the others, but ultimately it's a guy that we really think will deliver. Even if you're playing multiple lineups, you got this guy in every lineup. So it's funny when you kind of scan across this section, the bullish buy section between Yumi and Kamish. We all got Dolphins players this week. What do you know? So, looks like it's a clean sweep with Dolphins, but we do have two different names to talk about. And I guess I'll kind of lead off here and kind of talk for me and Kamish. We were kind of on the same page here, going Tyreek Hill for 7,000. And I think, a little bit of the logic there is Tyreek, that's actually pretty cheap for a Tyreek Hill. And, it kind of just goes back to the DraftKings algorithm where, he hasn't really been producing. He had like, what was it, like under 20 yards last week, I want to say, or even less.
Yeah.
But, pretty much had a abysmal week. So that kind of drops your average down. But the really big thing to track is if Tua plays, And I'm sure when we talk to on your side too, if Tua plays, he can really turn around that offense in the Dolphins. So I mean, I guess there's a big asterisk there. If Tua plays, I'm definitely putting Tyreek in my lineup. Looks like Kamish is too. But Ethan, if you want to comment on that, we can kind of go into your bullish buy.
Yeah, pretty much any Miami Dolphin is drastically underpriced if Tua comes back, which I expect him to come back. You just the value you get with Tyreek, he's 7,000. That's why I went with Devon A-Chain at 6,200. Even Jalen Waddle at 5,400 is insane value. So clearly, like you said, the DraftKings algorithm hasn't really caught up to the fact that Tua is going to play, and this whole offense is just going to take a massive step forward. So, and whenever you can get Tyreek Hill in your lineup with a healthy Tua for 7,000, it's tough not to. He was definitely a guy I was considering just at that price point. I went in a little different direction to save a little bit of money, and I spent up on Devon A-Chain. And Devon A-Chain, he can score every time he touches the ball. With this price point, it was hard not to put him in my lineup. I mean, he's led Miami's backfield in carries in all 5 games he's been healthy. He's received 80% of his backfield rush attempts inside the 10-yard line, and he's averaged a 15.4% target share in those healthy games, second best in the team ahead of Jalen Waddle, who has a 14.1% target share. So Devon A-Chain, he started off the season with a bang with 23 and 30 fantasy points, and obviously things kind of went south from there. But there's not a back in the league with more upside than Devon A-Chain on a per carry basis. He can just take it 80 yards, 50 yards at any time he touches it. But there was actually a lot of good running back plays on the slate this week. I just went with the upside with Devon A-Chain with a price point of 6,200.
Yeah, it's definitely a home run cut for sure. I mean, they are playing Arizona, and I mean, if you didn't know what teams are playing, it kind of looked like it was like Ravens versus Steelers back in the early 2000s on that Monday night with just a bunch of field goals
I know.
in that Chargers Arizona game. But Arizona's not that great on defense. It's just kind of, Chargers just kind of play slow as well. So yeah, I mean, I think the Dolphins offense against Arizona D is definitely a good play. We're all on the same page there. So hopefully Tua plays, and then we should see a lot more scoring. But we'll actually move on to the next segment here in the too deep section. As you scan across teams here, I think it might be fun. I'll back up a little bit. So too deep, obviously this is going to be defenses that can win. That can definitely help make sure you get back some money if you're scoring 8+ points. It's kind of what I've seen. You need your defense at least getting 8 to really be in the money. Too, if you get a big fat 0, it's like, hey, why even bother? So what we'll do is let's actually start with most expensive. So it looks like Kamish is going most expensive this week, going with the Chiefs defense. So my beloved Chiefs, playing the Raiders. So got a in division game, Chiefs Raiders. Really his big point on this game is, Raiders don't really know what they're doing at QB. Right when they made the QB switch, O'Connell went right back on IR, and they got to go back to Minshew again. And then really the final point is, I know Mahomes gets a lot of credit, but it's, for really the last 2 years that the Chiefs D is really kind of carrying the team as far as just dominating teams, even against good offenses. So, hey, those are Commissioner's words, not mine, Ethan. But yeah, any thoughts on the Chiefs D for this week?
I mean, the Chiefs have a very good defense, and to Commissioner's point, they have been kind of carrying that team. Mahomes doesn't really have to put up a ton of points to get victories. I mean, Mahomes in that offense has been pretty ugly this year so far, especially fantasy wise. So that Chiefs defense is playing well. I mean, they're not doing great in terms of scoring fantasy points. They've only scored double-digit fantasy points once this year. So I think I don't, and I'm sure Kamish used his entire budget, but if he could squeeze out another $100, I think you could have started the Denver Broncos defense at 3,700, which I think has a much better matchup. I know Gardner Minshew and the Raiders are kind of in disarray, but my guy Brock Bowers is going to carve up the Kansas City Chiefs this week. But no, I mean you can't go wrong with. I mean, right now the Raiders are giving up a lot of points to opposing defenses. So don't hate the call. I like a few more. I like a couple other defenses better, but it's hard to argue with the defense playing as well as Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, I physically had the Chiefs in my lineup at first, and it's funny, I actually had your defense too. I had the Ravens too. So we'll talk to we'll go talk the Baltimore matchup next. But yeah, I mean, I toyed around with both of your teams, and I'll talk my cheap one at the end there. But we'll let you kind of talk on the Ravens here next for your defensive play.
Yeah, the Ravens are playing a very, very, very bad football team in the Cleveland Browns. I mean, it's pretty simple. Mr. Pick Six himself, famous Jameis Winston, is starting at quarterback. That's what that's what the reports are saying. So, I mean, most of these numbers are with Deshaun Watson. I mean, who is playing absolutely putrid football, but. I mean, the Cleveland Browns offense, they're 30th in pass yards a game, 28th in rush yards, 32nd in total yards, and 29th in points. Like I said, Winston's going to be starting. I mean, when he was playing quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he was great for fantasy, but he would always start every game with a pick six. get that out of the way, and then he just start throwing TDs,
just slinging it.
But I mean, the Ravens made Baker look not very good at times. Last night, Baker really didn't put up points until kind of garbage time. The game was well out of reach, and then Baker just started kind of compiling stats. But I mean, Baker was he threw 2 picks. They were down by a bunch. And then, like I said, the Ravens felt like they called off the dogs, and Baker and that Bucs offense kind of took off late in that fourth quarter. But I think the Ravens at 3,400 was. I don't know. I think I was leaning between 2 defenses this week. It was Denver and Baltimore. The only reason why I went Baltimore is because I need to save a few $100, but I think they're going to have a field day against Jameis Winston and just the anemic Cleveland Browns defense. I mean, Cleveland Browns offense. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I love that call for sure. I mean, another thing that sticks out to me is the Ravens have the best run defense in the league as well, too. So, I mean, if anything was going for the Browns, it was having a Chubb back and maybe running the ball. But I mean, hey, now he's got to go up against the best run defense in the league. So that could maybe make him one-dimensional as well. And this, like you said, Winston just kind of out there slinging it around.
Yeah, that's why that's another reason why I don't really love Kamish's picking the Chiefs. I think the Ravens are going to outscore the Chiefs rather easily. I mean, we'll find out pretty soon here, but I just think the Ravens are a much better play than Kansas City, especially with, like I said, it's not like Kansas City is racking up a ton of fantasy points, and with Jameis Winston, the Cleveland Browns, they're going to be giving away fantasy points to the Baltimore Ravens defense.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they're good plays I think they're safe plays either way. I definitely went a little more risky. I went a little bit more down and dirty, going with the Dirty Birds. I went ATL for only 2,600 for my defense this week, and like I said, I was playing around with my lineup a little bit. There's a lot of matchups certain players I really wanted to get in my lineup. And when I looked at Atlanta, I'm like, hey, that's probably the cheapest defense that has a shot of making something happen, right? So they're playing Tampa Bay, okay, this week. Whereas, as we said earlier in the show, that they just lost Mike Evans, they just lost Chris Godwin, right? Who really are Mayfield's safety blankets. I mean, Atlanta is favored in this game as the away team, and as I also said earlier, that defenses travel as well. So if you can shut up a team, it's if you kind of play good defense on the road. And Atlanta actually has a pretty decent run defense. So Tampa Bay is not a good running team, and they just lost their best offensive weapons throwing the ball. So I also think Atlanta can turn Tampa Bay dimensional as well, where they're going to force Baker to throw it, and he has no weapons to throw to. So, um, yeah, I mean, like I said, I brought up the average depth to tackle earlier on the Thursday night matchup with the Rams being the worst, but Atlanta's actually tied for fourth best average depth of tackle under 4 yards at 3.6. So, as I said, they're pretty good running the run defense. They're cheap, and Baker just lost his weapons. So that's kind of my logic there for 2,600.
No, the logic's pretty sound there. You're getting a very cheap defense, and you're getting a reeling Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, like you said, who just lost their two best weapons. So that's why I think Rachaad White's actually a sneaky kind of play, because I think he's gonna kind of go back to his 2023 form where he's just gonna get peppered out of the backfield. So
Yep.
Rachaad White, maybe you gotta to bet his over in terms of his receptions this week. Probably not a bad play there, but I mean the Falcons, like I said, the Ravens made Baker and that offense look pretty anemic at times. Like I said, he threw two pretty bad picks. They weren't really moving the ball very well after those first couple of drives. So now, minus Godwin, minus Mike Evans, I think the Falcons can wreak some havoc. So definitely at a price point of 2,600, you don't need a ton of points to return value. So when you are diving deep, I think the Atlanta Falcons are a good call against a divisional opponent. They know each other, which is going to make it even hard on Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now they have, 1 week to kind of figure it out with Sterling Shepard, McMillan, and guys like that.
Right. Right. Yeah, well, I mean, we'll definitely see. As I said, if you had the money and the budget to spend, I do like you in commissions plays, but I had to save some money, and I didn't mind going ATL here. But we'll go on to one of the most fun sections to talk about, and that's our pick six category. That's this is where this is our value plays traditionally. They're pretty cheap depending on what position we're talking about. But let's actually knock out commissions here. He's got for us. So he's going Caleb Williams for 6,000 this week playing against Washington, and he's going David Njoku in that Ravens game. So Ethan, what are your thoughts on commissions two pick six players?
I really like him. Caleb Williams has been coming into his own. He's been great the last couple of weeks, and now he has a very good plus matchup against the Commanders. It would be nice if Daniels was playing on the other side. That would be kind of cool, seeing both rookie quarterbacks going head to head. But unfortunately, he's probably going to miss this with a rib injury. But Caleb Williams against that Commander secondary should wreak havoc with those weapons. So I really like that at a price point of 6,000. I'm actually surprised Caleb Williams is that cheap. So definitely like that call a lot. And I love the Njoku call as well. Njoku is the team's number one target.
Yeah.
He's the alpha receiving weapon in that offense. Jameis Winston at quarterback, he's not afraid to chuck the ball. So I think Njoku is going to get absolutely peppered. I see easily another 10 plus targets for David Njoku. I would get him in your lineups where you can.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with both picks there too. I mean, Caleb is definitely turning the corner a little bit, trying to make it pretty competitive in that division as well. So yeah, I think we're seeing progression from Caleb Williams each week too. So I mean, as we said, he's going against Washington in the past too. As you, he I know Washington looked like the
Yeah,
85 Bears
they
last
really did.
against Carolina, but yeah, I think Williams can kind of put up a little bit more flashy plays. So I think a little bit of little extra tidbit of information. I think he's stacking more with Caleb this week, so not a bad option there.
No, I have DJ Moore in my lineup as well. So I like the matchup, and I think Caleb Williams is going to do some work against that Commander secondary.
Agree. And then yeah, and then the David Njoku play, I think, as you said, that's really the best target to throw to on the Browns. And the Ravens actually do give up a little bit of extra plays to slot receivers and tight ends this year. They've given up some big plays overall in their secondary. I mean, you're probably not going to get Marlon Humphrey on David Njoku. I wouldn't think he's still going to be on the outside. So Njoku should get peppered, as you said. So I think that's a pretty solid call there.
Yeah, no, I think Kamish's Njoku against the Baltimore Ravens kind of ties into a couple of our call outs in Kate Otten, who just
Yes.
played who just played the Baltimore Ravens and had a hell of a day. In full point PPR, I believe he scored 18 points against the Ravens. I know Baker was chucking the ball late in that game, but Kate Otten was making some plays, and he did work. And I guess I'll get right into it. Kate Otten, he is going to be one of the primary pass catchers for the Bucks. Obviously, we with Evans and Godwin out, but Kate Ott's averaging 7 targets a game, which is tight end 6 amongst targets, 51.6 receiving yards a game, tight end 10 if you're ranking them since week 3, and he's led the Buccaneers in first read target share 24.1% and receiving yards 100 on a night where Mike Evans got hurt and Chris Godwin obviously went down late in that game. So it's more so with the Mike Evans injury, but obviously now with Chris Godwin out, that's going to increase those numbers. But Otten ranks 3rd amongst tight ends and routes, 198, and 4th in targets, 39. So Kate Otten has been a big part of this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. He plays, I mean, he's always on the field. So I think Kate Otten is going to get a bump in targets. And I think definitely DK has not adjusted his price enough. I mean, 3,400 is way too low for a guy like Kate Otten who should get peppered.
Yeah, I mean, I like it so much. As you see, I have him in my lineup as well too. So I think we said this last week that there is a world you can have the defense and the opposing tight end on your DFS lineup, and that's as we said, like they're gonna have to pepper, they're gonna have to dink and dunk down the field as well. And but just on top of everything you said, just with the injuries, I think on no matter what is going to be involved. So I mean, he was before, and I think he is now, definitely after these injuries. And then really agree with everything you said. Don't really need to add too much on Naughton. I will say one thing about Atlanta's defense is they've actually given up the second most receptions in the league to slot wide receivers and tight ends. So the reason why I like grouping those two together is it's really the same position group that's covering both guys, right? You either got your nickel corners or safeties and linebackers, and kind of what I look at is a combination of those. So Atlanta has given up the most receptions, and it just kind of affords right into that gameplay with Otten. So definitely love that call. And I'll go into my final pick 6, and I was laughing about this. I was trying to figure out which picture I wanted to show to see if you kind of knew who I was talking about now, who I'm showing there. But it's funny. I wanted to do one without a helmet on as well. Because go ahead.
I mean, it's very hard to see the picture, but is that Kamani Vidal?
No,
It
no.
looks like it looks like a 3. Is that 20?
So do this for me.
It's
So
tough to
get
see.
get a picture of our beloved Kamish. Feed him some steroids, jack him up a little bit, and you know what you get? You get a Will Disley.
Oh God, is that Will Disley?
That's Will
Oh
Disley.
God,
That is a Kamish on steroids, my friend. So
a lot of steroids, a lot of steroids.
that's right. Yeah, so it's kind of funny. So I'm going with a double tight end set this week in my DFS lineup. I'm going Otten and Disley.
It's funny. It's funny you say double tight ends because I went double tight end as well, but I went with a slightly more high profile guy than than Will Disley. Hey, I'll let you guess who is in my lineup. Who's my second
Oh
tight
my
end?
gosh. Let me guess. Does it a double B word?
Oh, it is. It is. Yes. I mean,
That's
hey, we all know Kansas City is one of the worst defenses against the tight end, and Minshew's not going to have many other options but to throw him the football. So another big game for my guy Brock Bowers. So, but yeah, so double tight ends around.
Love how you snuck Bowers
Yeah.
into this one there. But yeah, going back to Commish on steroids and Will Disley, it's not definitely not a sexy play, for sure. And you kind of look at it, but would you have guessed that Disley just caught eight catches in their Monday night football matchup against Arizona? He had 11 targets, eight catches, 81 yards, right? So that's going to get you at least 16 points that he gave you in fantasy. Hayden Hurst was injured, so obviously Disley took advantage of that. But
When
the
you said commission on steroids, I was thinking Hayden Hurst, the redhead, carrot top there.
it's close. I mean, Disley's
Yeah.
also a carrot top, so so kind of the united. It's funny they got the duo over there,
Yeah.
Hurst and Disley. But I also like it. I mean, his matchup against New Orleans. They're also horrible covering tight ends as well. And so I keep bringing up this stat here, just the slot and tight end position group. Now New Orleans, they're as I said, not just receptions, but just total yards. They've given up over 540 yards to those position groups this year. So definitely give up a lot of yards in the air to your slot corners, to your tight ends, right? So I like going back to that position in this matchup. Super cheap. My only two cheap plays in my lineup. The rest are just stud after
They,
stud. So.
okay, if you're starting Will Disley, you better have studs in your lineup.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is probably my favorite lineup I've had all year. And it's funny, it's going with the double tight ends. But what do you think of the double tight ends here, the Will Disley play, and then we'll move on to yours.
I mean, I love the K dot and play. Will Disley, I mean, obviously he had a pretty good day against Arizona. Uh, with QJ was out in this game, so maybe that led to increased targets for Disley. I think Joshua Palmer he was the second leading receiver with like 63 yards, or whatever. Then McConkey, I don't think he even broke 50. So it was not a night where Justin Herbert actually threw for almost 350 yards, no
Right.
touchdowns, but he actually I think had his highest total passing yardage of the season. So hopefully they can keep that up because Justin Herbert's just been so bad fantasy wise. In terms of just putting up points. So, I mean, double tight end. I mean, I take my double tight ends over yours just because my guy's in there. But no, I mean, hey, maybe Will Disley can keep it going in week 8, but definitely a risky call. But at 3,000, you don't need a ton of points to get return on value. But like you said, I mean, 2,600 for your defense, and two flex plays or one tight end and a flex play under 4,000. Your other pieces are probably pretty stacked.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's part of the play I really like about it as well. But yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see with the Will Disley play. I do think he'll kind of take over as the tight end, even if Hayden Hurst does come back. Um, I do think Disley's done enough, and he hasn't been blinked all year. He's been putting up points all year. I mean, yes, not his Monday Night Football game, but he's getting his 6 to 8 plus points every week. He hasn't put up a goose egg yet, so I'm hoping this is not the week as his goose egg week. But he's been shown he's going to get involved in the offense, and I think does go back to that Chargers offense. They are a dink and dunk team, and that does set up your tight ends to get some fantasy points when you're just dinking and dunking around.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So that'll bring me to my final pick six player, and it's another rookie quarterback, Bo Nix. And I think Bo Nix is kind of drastically undervalued. His price point's very low at 5,600. I think he has a prime matchup against the Carolina Panthers, who allow the most points per game. This year, they're 25th in pass yards allowed per game and 30th in total yards a game. I mean, Nix has been pretty good. He's had basically four in the last 5 games. He's had four pretty good weeks. He had 19.3. Then he had the dud against the Jets, 6.7, but then 23.1, 21.7, and then he had 14.1 last Thursday. But they destroyed the Saints, so he didn't really have to do much. So I just like this matchup. I think he's primed to have a good passing game, and Bo Nix is pretty safe in terms of his rushing floor. He has 47 total rushing attempts, which ranks sixth amongst 31 NFL quarterbacks with at least 10 rushing attempts, and he has a PFF rushing grade of 72.2, which ranks 11th. Bo Nix has 10 red zone rush attempts, just one behind Javonte Williams. Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, and Jaden Daniels are the only other quarterbacks who have run more in the red zone than Bo Nix. He ranks number 2 with 26 scrambles. And then just looking at the defense, their PFF pass rush grade for the Carolina Panthers, 48.1. That's last in the league, 32nd. Quarterback pressure rate, 23.3%. That's number 32 in the league. Their PFF coverage grade, 54.1, number 27 in the league. And then explosive pass plays allowed rate, 18.3%. That's number 32 in the league. So I predict Bo Nix to have some pretty explosive plays. I expect him to have a very solid rushing floor this week. So I think at a price point of $5,600, I thought that was a very solid value play, and it allows me to get a pretty stacked lineup across the board.
Yeah, I like that play. I mean, I was kind of looking for an argument with you a little bit, Ethan, this week, but I couldn't really because as I said, I had the Ravens in my lineup at one point in time. I was considering throwing Bo Nix in there. I went a little bit different, but yeah, I like that call. I mean, they're playing Carolina, great matchup. He's gonna, I like his floor as well. So yeah, he's actually a pretty safe play at 5,600 for a quarterback. And you two can, I'm sure you got some nice stats. I guess the only one I really can argue with a little bit is A-Chain. Considering I got Tyreek in my lineup, but that's really the only hair splitting hairs I can do this week for our lineups.
No, it's I wish you and Kamish the best and try to take me down. I'm going for win six in a row.
I know this is the week. I had to switch. I had to go dirty with Disley and get.
You had to put
heavy hitters in.
you had to put Kamish on steroids. You're allowed to give yourself a chance.
That's right. All right, so let's go on to hot takes. You see him on the screen. I'll kind of jump right into mine. I'm gonna say Tyreek goes off with Tua. I think he take the plus over 110 yards receiving. Also find if he catches a reception over 40-yard catch, and then take his anytime touchdown. Don't know what those odds are yet, but they got to be pretty good. So that's my hot take. I think Tyreek has a big day with Tua.
Yeah, no, Tyreek's bound to go off one of these weeks, and Tua's back. So why not this week? I mean, he has a pretty good matchup against Arizona. So definitely something that I can see happening. Unfortunately, like you said, we don't have the odds because it's only Tuesday and they haven't come out yet. Because I was wondering what my Bo Nix hot take would look like, especially with those over 50 yards rushing. But yeah, I expect him to get at least 2 passing touchdowns and over 50 rushing yards. So I think Bo Nix has a very good day, and I think he ends up as a top 12 fantasy quarterback in week 8.
I like it. It's probably like a +3, definitely in the 300s for sure.
Oh, with the over 50 rushing yards, yeah, that's going to give you some juice right there.
for sure. So I like it. Like I said, I hope that hits. I'll definitely play more than one lineup this week, kind of mix in all of our plays a little bit. As long as I gotta celebrate getting Kamish in my lineup more than once too. But yeah, I mean, I guess with all that said, that's kind of end of this week. Keep reaching out to us, as I said, on the socials. But until then, everyone, peace.